Today, I'm going to throw away my engineering hat and build an Android app from start to finish using only ChatGPT with GPT-4. That's right, start to finish and in record-breaking time. Yes, I will have a timer going, and no, I won't be writing any other code other than what it tells me. How correct is ChatGPT, and will it tell me everything that I need to know? If those burning questions have you on the end of your seat, folks, then slide back so you don't fall off, and let's find out together. As usual, if you want to follow along, there is a link down in the description. This video is broken down into 4 parts. Well, first, we're going to jump into my time machine, and we're going to take a look at the end result, even though currently I don't know what that looks like just yet. Then we'll come back to the present, and we'll give a prompt to ChatGPT, which I'll share with you. Then we'll build the app according to the code that it gives us, run it, and see if there's any bugs that we need to fix. Sound good? Let's go to the future. Welcome to the future, where everyone still dresses the same and we still don't have flying cars. But we do have an Android app called To Do GPT that's created entirely by ChatGPT and GPT-4. Let's dive in and see what it wrote for us. Now here I have a to-do app running in an emulator. And to be fair, all the features that I'll be showing you here were just written up into a prompt that I gave to GPT-4, and then it gave me the code. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So you can see I have an empty homepage just like this. It's a single screen application. All it does is it says no tasks when there are no tasks. But I have this fab down on the bottom. If I go ahead and press that button, I'll get a dialog that asks me to add some sort of task in. And I'll say something like my first task. I'll go ahead and hit OK, and you can see it adds it to the list. Let's go ahead and add in another one. I'll hit OK, and I can go ahead and check these off. And to be perfectly honest, the strike through thing was something I didn't actually recommend. This was actually completely generated by GPT-4. So if I go ahead and uncheck it, you can see these states persist. And if I go ahead and close the application, let's open it up one more time, and you can see everything is still there. So that means it's being preserved somehow. And I have this inside of a room database. If I go ahead and long press on this, it'll ask me if I want to delete the task. If I go ahead and hit cancel, for instance, it doesn't do it. If I press it again, hit OK, it deletes the task. Now, one point of clarity, I don't have any editing functionality in here. So once you add a task, you can either check it or uncheck it and delete it when you're done, but you can't rename a task once it's in there. So what did I do to make all this magic happen? Well, it happened with 2 primary prompts that I gave ChatGPT. By the way, I've just gotten back from the future, and it turns out all you need to do to come back to the present is drive 88 miles per hour. Who knew? Anyway, let's go ahead and dive in. Open, and the only thing that I've done for this other than create a project is I have a couple of libraries inside of there that I'm most likely going to need for this simple project. So otherwise, everything is bare bones. So Android Studio is open. I also have ChatGPT open and the timer. The timer is going to go ahead and start now, and we'll take a look at it up in the top corner up here. Okay, so everything looks good to go. I'm going to go ahead and copy my prompts in, but first, I'm going to have this go to GPT-4. If you're not a ChatGPT Plus subscriber, you won't have access to GPT-4, but you could try it on GPT-3 if you want to try it out on your own machine. But I'm going to go ahead and do this with GPT-4, which should give me more complete answers. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy the first prompt just to get everything warmed up, and you can look down in the description if you want to go ahead and copy it in on your own project. Okay. So that one ran already. This one should take a little bit more time. This is the second prompt. Again, down in the description, you can go ahead and find that. I'll go ahead and paste that in. Everything looks good there. And then we'll go ahead and let it spit out the code. Okay, so it looks like it stopped partway on step 6. And that's okay, because it's actually limited in the amount of characters that it can output. So all I'm going to do is say something like this, or something like that. And you should see it pick up from step 6. And one more time, it looks like it stopped partway through on step 9. So I'll say, can you continue from step 9? Okay, so it took a few minutes for it to generate. You can see just over 6.5 minutes, but we have what should be a fully functional app from this. So let's go ahead and scroll up to the very top, and then let's get started. So I already did step 1. As I mentioned earlier, the dependencies should already be in place. Let's go ahead to the second task here. We're going to go ahead and make this class. So I'll copy this code, and I'm going to go ahead and make a task class, I suppose. I'm just going to do it exactly as it suggests. So in here, I'll create a new file. I'll put this under a data package, and we'll call this just task, like this. Go ahead and add that into Git, and then I'll paste that in. Okay, so step 1 is created. Now let's create the database with step 2. Going back here, now we're going to create the file. I'll call it app database, just like so. And we'll paste in everything like this. So we have the app database, we have the task. What else do we have here? Create a view model to handle the data operations. Okay, so I'm going to put this, I'll copy that, I'll put this under a model package. Okay, perfect, that imported everything. Well, let's keep going here. Let's create the main UI component for the app. So that I'll put underneath the UI package, just like this. All right, so now we've got the task list. So I'll paste that in just like so. Take the second to import everything. And okay, so it looks like I will propagate that up. So I know I'm doing just a couple suggestions here as it's going ahead and putting it in, but that should be okay. So right now I have an error, but let's go ahead and move on. Let's see if this corrects it for us. So it's having us replace the main activity. It's stopped part way. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. Call this the task list screen. Copy out that import, just like this. And I've got to import the view model. So that's good. And then had a section of code down at the bottom. Guess we'll see what that's for here in a second. Okay, so I've got to propagate once again this up to the main activity. Okay, looks like there's no errors here. So far, we're making some pretty good headway. Let's keep going here. Okay, so now I got to implement that top bar. So that's probably up here where it said implement the top bar, task list top bar. Okay, so I'll go ahead and copy this thing out. To be perfectly honest, I'm really not paying attention to what's going on here. I'm just pasting it in and not really thinking about it because I've taken off my engineering hat. So we'll go ahead and import the material 3 version of this. And then it looks like we've got a potential error there, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Copy the task list fab. Hopefully that'll do a nice import for us. Scrolling down a bit more, task list content. And it did stop part way on that. So we'll have to piece these two pieces together here. Task list content. And like this. So it looks like, I mean, we're coming to the home stretch here. Lots of stuff to import. Okay, so I've gone the entire way through. I've imported everything. To be perfectly honest, most of the effort that I've gone through is just importing stuff. Now that I've copied everything over, you can see we do have a couple of errors. We don't have anything in the task. We don't have anything in the app database or the task view model. Everything there looks good. So it's just the task list, which is pretty much building out the entire UI. Let's go ahead one by one and ask what it wants for us to do. Okay, so it says the content parameter is not being used. For the scaffold, it is not being used. Okay, so it looks like it's still giving me an issue, but let's go ahead and apply its suggestions. All it did was it took that and it removed the content and made it just a lambda at the end. Still doesn't seem to like that. So let's see what we can do. The real solution is apparently we would have to take a box and then we could put a modifier and then we can put that inside of a box. So looks like the first thing is not working out as expected. I've had to make one manual correction so far, but so far looks like that's the only one I've had to do. Let's go ahead and keep going here. Cannot find the parameter background color. The top app bar doesn't have a background color. What should I use instead? Well, apparently it says I'm correct, so at least it's validating me. So it says use the color parameter. Okay. And I don't have a color parameter either. So I can use, it looks like if I hover over this, looks like I could use colors, and that one worked. Okay, so I don't have a material theme colors property. What should I use instead? Okay, so this is starting to go down a custom path, which is okay. But let's go ahead and just do this manually. So if you can see, I can say color scheme, and then I can say something like, primary. So the thing I was looking for instead was the color scheme primary. To be perfectly honest, it's requiring top app bar colors. I'm going to go ahead and just nix this all together. So we'll just have just a top app bar that says the to-do list. We're going to go ahead and ignore that suggestion for now. Okay, so looking at this part right here, you can see I don't have a view model scope. So I'm going to speed things up here a little bit just to kind of keep time. But in order to do a view model scope, you actually need to have a view model. So that is the thing that's being passed in, is this view model itself. So if I have access to this, which yes I do, so one way that you can make this work is just say view model scope taskViewModel.viewModelScope.launch, and that should work. So we're definitely making headway here. Another thing that I found that's wrong here is the items. So whenever you're working with a lazy column, or what's basically the equivalent of a recycler view, it's asking for the number of items, not the actual items itself. So in this case, I'm going to say tasks.size, and then inside of here, I'll go ahead and refer to the task itself. I might rename this to be index. So we'll say tasks index like this, so I can pull off the exact task from that list. Task row, I'll go ahead and do the same thing. We'll say tasks index, just like this. And moving on down here, let's see what's the problem here. Oh, I've got to propagate that experimental API vertical alignment. This is I must have pulled in the wrong one, so we'll say center vertically. I may have imported the wrong alignment type here in typography. So it doesn't have a body 1, but it does have, let's see here, we'll say body small or something like that. And I have one more error here. It looks like task row isn't too happy about this. So I'll propagate, there we go. It's just propagating those experimental APIs here, which means I probably have to do the exact same thing up here since I'm using entirely material 3 things, which aren't quite stable yet. So that looks like all of the errors have been addressed. So let's go ahead, fingers crossed, and build this thing. So I'm at 22 minutes so far. Let's go ahead and build this and see if everything works as expected. And it looks like I forgot to do one last import. So I'm going to go ahead in the main activity where I've got this issue, and I'll propagate that up to the main class activity, just like I did before. All right, so now let's run this again. Okay, so it looks like our application has built. Well, let's take a moment and explore and see if everything's working. So on the home screen, I have no tasks, which makes sense for a brand new install. Go ahead and hit the plus sign, and it brings up a dialog. Let's go ahead and put in a task. I'm going to say something like, walk the dog. Okay, let's go ahead and hit one more. Maybe I'll say, make dinner. Okay, so far everything's looking good. I'll go ahead and check one of those things. Looks good. Go ahead and press and hold make dinner. If I hit cancel, nope, doesn't disappear. If I press and hold again and hit OK, okay, it disappeared. And then I'll just say one more, just like this. Added it to the list. I'll go ahead and close it. Open it up one more time and make sure that everything persisted. And we can see that it did. No bugs, perfect implementation the first time. That entire process took just shy of 26 minutes to go from start to finish. And quite honestly, part of it was waiting for ChatGPT to go ahead and do its thing. The other part was me importing everything. So that worked out pretty well. But we obviously hit a few snags. First of all, it didn't understand some of the naming specifics. So for example, in the material theme, I had to import a different type of color and typography than what it had provided to me. Plus, it also opted to use some experimental APIs that required me to annotate some of my functions. While ChatGPT did a pretty great job making sure this was all going to work, in my opinion, these were its 2 big misses. First of all, it didn't know how to tie a view model scope to a view model, and I had to manually add padding around the body in order to make it work. But overall, we have a functional app. So that's it. We started off this video by going to the end results so you knew what the app was going to look like and what it was going to do. Then I shared a prompt with ChatGPT according to all of those requirements, and then we built it according to the prompt, and then we ran the app, and honestly, we didn't run into any bugs. It worked perfectly the first time. Now, putting my engineering hat back on, this is definitely not how I'd recommend we build an application. Even though it technically works, it's definitely not maintainable. So here's a question. Is AI coming to replace your job, or is it coming to assist your job? Well, I explored that a little bit over here in this video. I definitely recommend you check it out. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Is AI an assistant or a replacement? I'll see you next week on TLDR Android.